I'm Ros Childs. We're taking you straight to Adelaide, where Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young is speaking to university students.
This pivotal moment really does make change. I wanted to talk originally today about the need for affordable and accessible education for all. And years ago, I cut my teeth in student politics. I was the president at the Students' Association at Adelaide University at a time when the Howard government was making massive cuts to universities, at a time when the Howard government was ramming through legislation to cut money to student organisations because they didn't want students having student-led voices. They didn't want dissenting voices organised on university campuses. They knew that as a group of young people with resources and a platform that we were powerful. Some of the issues that we took on, of course, were in relation to cuts to higher education, to making it harder for students to afford to go to university, but we were also standing up for other issues of social justice and against other issues of inequality. And one of those, of course, was in relation to safety and respect for women. I just want to tell you a little bit of a story. When I was student president at Adelaide University, there was a spate of rapes. You know, who's here from Adelaide? Okay. You know, the footbridge that runs between the university campus and through the ovals and up to the university residences in North Adelaide. Over a spate of a few weeks, there had been a number of assaults and rapes on that trip home for young female students who were walking home after they'd been studying, after they had been hanging out on the campus with their mates and walking home. Those young women had every right to be safe on their campus, to be safe on their walk home and to be safe in their houses of residence. But sadly, they weren't. And as student president, I had to go to the University Council and to the Vice-Chancellor at the time and ask very serious questions, of course, about what type of security and safety there was on campus. That university had recently outsourced the security on the campus, and so there were questions about whether that had an impact. Were we putting the profits or the budgets of security above the safety of young people, students and particularly women? I thought at the time the results were in that we were. Now, that's just one story, and that happened in the early 2000s. I know that you've been talking today and yesterday throughout your conference about some of these issues in relation to respect and the treatment of women on campus, the issue of harassment and assault. And I know that the survey that was done last year across a number of different universities showed that still today many students, many female students, are not safe from harassment and they're not safe from abuse. And I am appalled that in 2018 that we can have a situation where 1 in 5 students are harassed and assaulted within university facilities. And that is appalling. And we need to do something about it. And as a student body and as representatives of your different student organisations, you have the power to speak up about this. But as a legislator and as somebody in the federal parliament, I too have a responsibility to help you and to make sure that universities have the support and the resources and the funding to manage this. Kate, you asked about calling it out and why that's important. This year marks 10 years that I've been in the parliament. I was the youngest woman ever elected to a parliament in Australia and the youngest person ever elected to the Senate. When I started at the age of 25, in some ways I was quite naive. I thought that having my political views and the facts before me would be enough, that my ability to stand up and argue my point would be valued, and that would be enough. The Senate chamber, the House of Representatives chamber, the chamber of public discourse in politics over this 10 years has gotten worse. It is now that your point and your argument is only so good as the level of which you shout it, or the level of which aggression you use, or the ability for you to undercut your opponent and weaken them instantly. And for years, I have sat in the Senate chamber trying to make my point, participating in robust discussion, and boy, I'm the first to admit I can give as good as I can get in the middle of a public debate. But some people in that place, when they cannot win an argument, when they cannot be bothered mounting an argument, they use intimidation and bullying. And consistently, this is gendered, it's sexist, and involves sexual slurs. Over the years, I've tried to ignore the mutterings, the rumour mill. Did you hear she slept with such and such? Oh, I heard that was a good night, Sarah. Oh, you're tired today. What are you wearing that for? There's one particular senator who says to me every time I am in an argument, every time I am stripping his argument to pieces, why don't you smile at me, Sarah? I have members, and there's not many of them. I want to make this very clear. Most members of the parliament are decent people. Most men in the parliament are decent men. But there are some who are absolute cowards. And these men, over the years, have turned mutterings into now slurs that are shouted across the chamber. Stop shagging men, Sarah. They yell out men's names at me while I'm on my feet. I had one member of parliament, fellow senator, during a late-night debate on immigration detention. It was the night, I distinctly remember it, it was the night that we were debating reopening Manus Island and Nauru, and I was on my feet for hours, moving amendments after amendments after amendments to what I believed, and I still do, it was a hideous piece of legislation. And while I was on my feet making arguments for amendments, safeguards, time limits, saying that we shouldn't have children in these places, I had a fellow senator, drunk, he'd been out drinking in his office or in someone else's office, walked into the chamber, I was on my feet, and he came and sat next to me, and he said pretty sexist things. And then he started singing nursery rhymes while I was speaking. Shame! Shame! I didn't know what to do. And I regret I didn't call it out. I regret that I didn't call it out right there and then at the time. But last week, when Senator Leyonhjelm, in the middle of a motion about violence against women, I just want to be really clear about this. This motion was put up by a right-wing member of the crossbench, former member of One Nation, Senator Anning. The motion said that we should reduce the restrictions of imports to allow more personal pepper spray and tasers to be brought into the country. More pepper spray and tasers, he believed, would help to reduce violence against women. I, of course, voted no. So did the majority of the parliament. Every member of the Greens voted no, every member of the Labor Party voted no, every member of the Liberal Party voted no. But there was a gaggle of crossbenchers from the very conservative right-wing side of politics who didn't. It was only 5 of them. During that debate, I said that I didn't believe that putting more tasers on the streets would make women safer from men. I believe that. The motion went down, got voted down, and as the numbers were clear to Senator Leyonhjelm, he yelled across the chamber, "Well, now you have to stop shagging men, Sarah." Shame! I heard it so clearly. I was a bit shocked that it was that clear. And I've been thinking about calling this out for a long time. And in that moment, I knew if I didn't do it now, if I didn't take the courage to do it now, when would I? Enough is enough. So I walked over to him. I wanted to be absolutely clear that I had heard what I thought I had heard. I asked him. He confirmed it. He said yes, he had. I was shocked. I called him a creep, and he told me to F off. I walked back to my seat, and I knew I had to call it out. I knew that I had to put it on the record, because if I didn't, it would never stop. Yeah. It would never stop. And thus the journey begins. When I stood up and called it out, I knew that in doing so, like many other brave, brave women who have come before me, that there would be retribution. That some people wouldn't believe it, that some people would think this is too icky and we just shouldn't be talking about this. I didn't expect Senator Leyonhjelm to go on national television and make it even worse. I did not expect that a national platform like Sky News would allow him on there to make it worse. I called on the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition this morning to come out and condemn these comments, and I want to say both of them have since I first did the interview this morning and called on them to do that, and I want to pay respect to that. In fact, I think the Prime Minister has made a very, very important point. He condemned Senator Leyonhjelm for the comments. He said they were highly offensive, which of course they are. He also made the very important point that violence against women and domestic violence starts with disrespect. And that is why this is so important, Kate. That is why this is essential to call it out, confront it and deal with it. Because it all starts with disrespect. And if we can't conduct ourselves in a respectful manner in the nation's parliament, how on earth can we expect our workplaces to be safe? How on earth can we expect our schools and our schoolyards to be safe? How on earth can we expect our universities to be safe places for people to study? And of course, where most violence occurs.
Sarah Hanson-Young there speaking to university students in Adelaide. The Green senator was talking about the treatment of women on campus, that's why she was there, but then she spoke about the standards of behaviour in federal politics, in particular that of crossbench Senator David Leyonhjelm.